Hallo Freunde und willkommen. My name is Nate, and I want to thank you so much for joining me in today's video. Today, I will be reacting to another one from a very popular YouTuber who goes by the name of Philly from Germany. Now, because we're getting very close to Halloween, it is this coming weekend and possibly my favorite holiday of the year. I thought it would be fun to react to one of her videos that compares the US and Germany and how each celebrates Halloween, and if it's as crazy in the US as people think it is, and what the differences are in Germany and how they celebrate it. So without further delay, let's just hop into the video.
Süßes oder Saures? Hallo, Servus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Felicia. I'm originally from Munich, Germany. That's where I was born and raised. But since the fall of 2016, I've been living here in Cincinnati, Ohio. And today is a pretty important holiday here in the US. So happy Halloween, everyone. I figured I should probably dress up for this video, but I've been really busy. We just released a new podcast episode 2 days ago. If you haven't checked that one out yet, give it a listen or a watch on YouTube. Understanding Train Station is what it's called. All the links are in the info box below. But yeah, I didn't have time to come up with a cool costume for this year, so I'm just wearing my old panda costume. But I mean, pandas are my favorite animals, so it works. Many of you have been asking me about how and if we celebrate Halloween in Germany. And in the past years, my German friends often asked me about how big of a deal Halloween really is in the US and if it's really like in the movies. And what better occasion could there be than today to answer all of those questions? As I said, Halloween is a pretty big deal in the US, and I think what many Americans aren't aware of is that it's pretty different in Germany, because it wasn't even a thing there until like the 90s, and it's similar in many other parts of the world.
Halloween wasn't a thing until the 90s? That's something I didn't know.
So in Germany, it's only been a little over 20 years since people started celebrating Halloween. So it's not something traditional there that has a bunch of history to it. It's more something that came over from the US and people have started to adapt it. I think it has a lot to do with American pop culture. We just see all those Halloween movies and how it's referenced on TV shows. And when German kids see the trick-or-treating on TV, they just want to do that too, and they want to carve pumpkins and all of those things. As I've said many times before, Germany is pretty Americanized in general, and by that I mean that we do consume a lot of American and other English-speaking music, we watch American movies and TV shows, even though they're usually dubbed in Germany, and we follow American pop culture and also things like politics pretty closely. So nowadays, Halloween is a thing in Germany, but it hasn't been around long enough to reach everyone in Germany and for there to be like established traditions or something like that. I think my generation was one of the first ones to ever really celebrate it in Germany. I remember that in elementary school, there was this one girl who had a pretty close connection to the US, and she always hosted a kids' Halloween party each year. So I think that was like when I first learned about it, and then in the following years, other friends would host Halloween parties as well.
I still can't get over that it wasn't really a thing before the 90s. I mean, if anybody out there, maybe she'll explain later in the video, but if not, please let me know why. I mean, I really don't understand why. I mean, I remember as a kid dressing up every year, going trick-or-treating, and you know, all the candy. I mean, it's a huge holiday here, a very, very big holiday here. So it still blows my mind. It really wasn't a thing over there.
And in my neighborhood, kids kind of started trick-or-treating. We'd say Süßes oder Saures in German, or some people would say Süßes sonst gibt's Saures. So my friends and I did that. Not every year, but I think at least like 2 or 3 years we went trick-or-treating. But I do remember that some people were really confused when we rang the doorbell in our costumes because they didn't even know what this was all about. And some of those who did know what it was were pretty annoyed with it and would tell us to go away with this like American bullshit. And some even hung up signs on their doors on October 31st saying that they're not participating in this new trend. And I think it had to do with the fact that to a lot of people, it just seemed like an excuse for kids to mooch a bunch of candy, which isn't totally wrong. But the majority of people were nice about it and would just give us candy, and more kids started doing it each year. Unlike in the US, where you'll also see many parents go trick-or-treating with their really young children, I don't remember many or like really any parents being part of this in Germany, but I think that's because it was more something that the kids started by themselves when they were old enough, which in Germany, parents let their kids go outside by themselves a lot earlier than in the US usually. But it also may have changed since then. I mean, maybe nowadays parents do participate in this too, I don't know. To all the Germans watching, maybe you can share in the comments below what it's like these days. One of the big differences between Halloween in Germany and Halloween in the US is that in Germany, we already celebrate Carnival in January or February, which, unlike Halloween, is an old German tradition. And this also includes dressing up in costumes, so we already have an established holiday for that, which is why Halloween in Germany pretty much just took over the role of everything scary. I mean, of course, that's what Halloween is about in the US too, but especially when it comes to costumes, people really dress up as anything in the US, not necessarily just scary costumes. I mean, you'll see unicorns, all kinds of animals. I mean, I'm a panda, as you can see. I've worn my dirndl as a costume before, so it's not required to dress up as something scary here. Whereas in Germany, the regular costumes are already a thing for Karneval, or Fasching, or Fastnacht. It has different names depending on where you are in Germany. I actually made a whole video about Karneval earlier this year. You can check it out here or in the info box below.
Okay, so that makes a little bit more sense. I do remember Fasching from when we lived in Germany, and you dress up and it's a carnival, you know, the town gets together, it's a big party. So not having Halloween because you have that makes a little bit more sense. And then the dressing up as Halloween, it just seems kind of redundant, and the only thing you're adding is just a bunch of sweet candy to the mix, I guess, to get all the kids hyper. So that makes a little bit more sense.
So for Halloween, people really only dress up as witches, vampires, zombies, and those kind of things in Germany. And dressing up in school is also mostly a thing that kids only do for Carnival. Like, we never did that for Halloween, for example. Later, when we were a little older, we started going to more like grown-up Halloween parties and events at bars and things like that in costumes. But that's really all there was regarding Halloween in Germany. In the US, Halloween is very present throughout the entire month of October. Like, as soon as October starts, people get out their Halloween decorations and people decorate their front yards and the inside of their homes. Many people really go all out with it so that their entire front yard is almost like a small haunted house. If you've seen those videos of houses in the US that have those insane Christmas decorations, some people do the same thing with Halloween here too. All the stores are full of Halloween decorations too, and usually, not so much this year, but under normal circumstances, Halloween parties also take place all throughout October. Germans really mostly celebrate Halloween on the day itself. We don't like celebrating things early in general, but here in the US, people celebrate Halloween all month long, just like Americans also celebrate their birthdays early sometimes, which is a big no-go in Germany. Besides the decorations and parties, there are many places like haunted houses that people go to in the US. There are specials at restaurants where you get a discount if you show up in a costume. There are things like parades, costume contests, and even college students sometimes go to school in a costume. It's just everywhere, and I personally love how big it is here. And then, of course, there are the pumpkins, which I think are kind of a mix of a Halloween tradition and just a regular fall tradition. Many people here carve pumpkins as part of their decorations, and many also visit pumpkin farms where they can pick their pumpkins on a field, do apple picking, hay rides, and do a corn maze and those kinds of things. I actually went to a pumpkin patch just last week, and the pumpkin in the background is one of the pumpkins that I picked myself, so I'm very proud of myself. But I didn't get to carve it yet because I've been so busy, so hopefully I can still do that today. Some Germans do carve pumpkins too nowadays, and you will see pumpkins in the stores, and sometimes there's little stands on the side of the street, but I've personally never seen a pumpkin farm in Germany like they have them here in the US. Even though the United States is indisputably the global hub of Halloween today, the origins of Halloween actually lie in Europe. There have been many different influences on the holiday over the centuries, but there are two main roots: the Celts and some of their the origins of Halloween actually lie in Europe. There have been many different influences on the holiday over the centuries, but there are two main roots: the Celts and some of their pagan rituals, and the Catholic Church. So on October 31st, the Celtic people, who mainly lived in Ireland and the rest of the UK over 2,000 years ago, celebrated the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter, which they considered to be the darker half of the year. It was also considered a time when the boundaries to the world of the dead were very thin, so the ghosts of the dead would walk the earth, and that's why they had many rituals, including huge bonfires to send the ghosts back to the spirit world. Apparently, even in the 16th century, there were already different customs that included dressing up in disguise, going from door to door, and playing pranks on each other. In the 7th century, the Catholic Church started merging the celebration with the Catholic holiday All Saints' Day, or also called Hallow Mass, which is celebrated on November 1st, and which was also related to the afterlife and the dead because it's a holiday to honor the saints and to pray for the recently deceased. In Germany, All Saints' Day is called Allerheiligen and is to this day a legal holiday in many parts of Germany. In English, the night before All Saints' Day was called All Hallows Eve, and that turned into Halloween over time. In the 1840s, when masses of Irish immigrants came to North America, they brought their holiday customs with them, and things developed from there on. By the 1930s, the dressing up and playing pranks had gotten a little out of hand and often turned into vandalism, so people gave out candy to the kids as bribes to stop the tricks, and that's how the term trick or treat came about. Over the course of the 20th century, Halloween then became really commercialized with pre-made costumes, the candy industry jumping on the bandwagon, and the media celebrating the holiday with scary movie specials and those kinds of things. And that leads us to where we are today, and where I have to say that, yes, Halloween in the US really is like it is in the movies, in my opinion, because just like they do it with other holidays, Americans go all out for this one, and it's pretty much impossible not to be surrounded with Halloween in the month of October in the US.
Okay, so a note on the commercialization of Halloween. Now that can be said for just about anything in the US and possibly the world, that, companies saw dollar signs and they're like, hey, we can make a bunch of money by selling these cheap ass costumes to all these people that are running around during Halloween. The costumes, in my opinion, have gotten they're out of control. They're ridiculous. If it's not a scary thing, they've sexualized Halloween as well. And by that I mean you can find any costume you want, pretty much, in a sexy version, which is just stupid, I think. But I really enjoy how she also brings in the history and the beginning of Halloween. I knew it was All Hallows Eve and that it started way back then, and then slowly over time, was brought to the U.S. by the pilgrims, the people migrating over here, and developed into what it is today. And I think, like many holidays, it's more about consumerism than it is about actually celebrating what it is that it was originally created for.
Now, I'd like to know from you guys, do people celebrate Halloween where you're from? And if yes, how do they celebrate it? Is it similar to American customs, or do you have your own Halloween traditions? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so yet. Give this video a thumbs up and follow me on Instagram. And also check out Josh's and my new podcast. It's called Understanding Train Station. You can find it on YouTube and on all the podcast platforms. It's linked below. If you want to give me a little treat, you can buy me a coffee on buymeacoffee.com/. And with that, thank you so much for watching. I hope everyone has a great Halloween, whether you celebrate it or not, and I hope I'll see you next time. Tschüss and happy Halloween!
Alright, so that was a pretty entertaining video. I really enjoy, like I said a little bit ago, that she brings in the history of Halloween into the video so we can understand exactly where it came from. I still find it, although somewhat less now, interesting that it's not such a huge deal in Germany. When I lived over there, I don't really remember what we did for Halloween, if we did anything. Granted, I was in the military, so obviously surrounded by a bunch of Americans. So we kind of celebrated it a little bit, but there wasn't the huge trick-or-treating piles of people going down the street in the town that we lived in. Still an interesting fact that it's really not that big a deal, but they have fashion, they have the carnival. So I understand why it's not as big, because they already have something that they dress up for. And knowing now that Halloween is more for them when they do the scary parts or the horror type piece of Halloween. Whereas here in the US, you know, like she said, you can find costumes for anything, and it's not just the scary witches and zombies and dead people and whatever. Now, I said that Halloween could be possibly my favorite holiday of the year. Having said that, I'm not a holiday person at all, really. I don't get into the spirit, I guess, of even Christmas. It's a holiday, it's important, it's fun with family and friends. If I was single with no family around, I probably wouldn't decorate ever. I wouldn't make a big deal out of it. But once in a while, I do like dressing up, especially if there's something going on at work. I don't know how it's going to work this year because Halloween's on a Sunday and I don't work Sundays, so I don't know if they're going to allow us to dress up on Saturday. I don't know how that's going to be, and it's really not that big a deal, and I don't go trick-or-treating. I mean, my boys are grown now, they don't trick-or-treat, but my wife sits out front with the bowl of candy, you know, for the kids in the neighborhood to come by. I go out and pop in on her once in a while throughout that time, but I don't normally sit out there. You know, it's not that big a deal for me when we move back to Germany to not have a full-blown Halloween. I don't know that I'll miss it at all. I like the change of the seasons. You know, it's fall. To have a holiday that, you know, you're just spending more money on candy and whatever, I don't think that's such a big deal. So, well, I found this very interesting. I hope you did as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification, all the YouTubey things. And I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope you have a wonderful Halloween next weekend. So until the next video, I will catch you later. Bye.